Well, Mr. Lumberjack, what do you think about trees and deforestation?
Trees? They're everywhere. It's even getting to the point where you can't go to the park without seeing a tree. If it weren't for us lumberjacks, they'd start overwhelming us and take over the world. And then when we park our cars and raise our children. In the forest? You gotta be kidding me. Wishful thinking. Except for one small problem. Bears. That's why I've been taking down these trees to make room for these roads. I'm doing it all with my bare hands.
Well, while this mentality may seem humorous, you have to imagine, is this really the best way to approach deforestation? Let's see what some other experts have to say.
As many of you know, one of the key reasons behind deforestation is to free up farmland. This urge is especially strong in developing nations, where an acre of farmland can mean the difference between eating and starvation. As much as 3.6 million hectares of the Brazilian rainforest was deforested and dedicated to agriculture between the years of 2001 and 2004. This was according to a study by a panel of experts from organizations that included the University of Maryland, Oxford, and NASA. That same study concluded that over the same period, the rate of conversion of forested cropland in a single Brazilian state accounted for 23% of the annual rate of deforestation. However, deforestation itself has a drastic effect on agriculture and in turn on the biosphere as a whole, and these effects are not always positive. In fact, oftentimes they aren't. According to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, 13 million hectares of forest are destroyed every year. That is 130 billion square meters of forest per year. This cleared land is often used for agricultural purposes, but this carries significant risks. The lack of surface vegetation in deforested areas leads to rain becoming surface runoff rather than being trapped by surface vegetation. This can increase the risk of flash floods. Deforestation also significantly affects the water cycle, causing drastic changes in groundwater and atmospheric water quantities. This can affect agriculture in any number of ways, be it drought or massive rain events that can ruin entire crops. Studies by the UN and the Worldwide Fund for Nature have concluded that the Yangtze River in China's increased flood activity over the last decade is directly connected to the logging of an area 4 times the size of Hong Kong along its banks during the 1980s. This has caused thousands of deaths and ruined what is estimated to be thousands and possibly tens of thousands of hectares of farmland. The opposite, such as desertification, can render once fertile areas inhospitable and force farmers to rely ever increasingly on irrigation, rather than just supplementing basic rainfalls. However, it is not just deforestation's effect on the water cycle that makes it such a twin-edged sword for farmers. Its effect on the carbon cycle can lead to stripping soil of organic carbons, which aid significantly in agriculture. According to a study by the Wageningen University's Department of Soil Science and Geology, pasture 25 years after it has been deforested has a net carbon loss of 21.8 milligrams per hectare to the -1st, which is a very, very significant amount. This loss of organic carbons and other nutrients forces farmers to rely on fertilizers, which have a plurality of side effects, including leaching even more nutrients out of the soil. In addition, according to studies by the Global Carbon Project, deforestation is responsible for nearly 20% of carbon emissions due to human activity. This is a significant contributor to global climate change, the effects of which are inestimable when it comes to agriculture. Deforestation can have very negative effects on agriculture, producing a vicious cycle where farmers need more and more land in order to sustain themselves, which in turn causes more and more forest depletion. That is, however, far from the least of its effects. It can have as bad, and if not worse, effects on the biodiversity of formerly forested areas, which my colleague shall now discuss.
Now, in case you're all wondering, deforestation leads to a great loss of biodiversity, which is also known as the number of different species within a habitat living together. If we eliminate these species' homes by building homes for ourselves, such as these quarter dorms, then these animals have nowhere to live. All of the squirrels, birds, and even insects living in these trees are forced to live with us and risk death, such as crossing this road and dying. It's because of us that these animals are lowering in numbers and forced to live outside of their natural habitat, and thus risking extinction. Let's take a look at other examples of loss of biodiversity. As you can see, deforestation leads to a large destruction of the habitats of certain animals and plants for our own personal benefit. Let's take a look at this ski around. It doesn't even snow here. The last time it probably snowed was probably during the Ice Age, so there's really no point in having it. A 20-year-long study has shown that 12.5% of the plant species in our world is becoming a rarity. The forests in our world are being exploited to a point beyond crisis. In addition, we have discovered 44 new species, but these species are still at risk to deforestation. We're only losing species, we're not necessarily gaining them. The loss of rainforests is also related to a loss of potential knowledge, whether it's medicinal, or sustenance, or even evolutionary or scientific purposes. Let's take a look at how deforestation is affecting other parts of the world.
Alright, I'm here today to talk about deforestation. You may have heard about deforestation. It's that thing where they cut down all the trees. Yeah. A lot of people think it's going to lead to global warming. Partially true. When you cut down trees, they no longer sequester carbon from the atmosphere. That means they're not taking any more carbon dioxide out of our atmosphere, which means the levels are only going to go up. Furthermore, trees store carbon. When you cut them down, that carbon is released and it goes right back into the atmosphere. So in that respect, yeah, carbon dioxide, we know it's a greenhouse gas. It's going to warm the atmosphere. But there's something we didn't consider. Take a look over here. See this sunny area over here? There's no trees there. So the sun is getting all the way down to the snow. Snow has an extremely high albedo. Albedo is the reflectivity of a surface. Because of the snow's high albedo, it actually reflects solar radiation back up out of our atmosphere, cooling the planet. In areas with high latitude where there's snow cover a lot of the year, this actually means a net cooling, even if we cut down all the trees. Now, this isn't always true. If we cut down trees in the tropics where there isn't a lot of snow cover a lot of the year, what happens is we get a loss of evapotranspiration. And what that means is less clouds. And clouds are the main form of albedo in the tropics. So with less albedo there and less precipitation from evapotranspiration, we get a net warming in that area. So it's regional, it depends. But if we cut down all the trees on the planet, what we would actually see is an overall cooling effect because of the great effect of cutting down trees in the high latitudes. Thanks for listening.
Biz and peace, trees.
Hope that starts a forest fire. Save me some work.